There she was, Tina, standing on my porch in a leopard print robe and U-boots, screaming like the world was ending. According to her, her Tesla had been taken over by the devil himself because the dashboard lit up like a Vegas strip. And me? I was just standing there, sipping my coffee, wondering if now was finally the moment to break the news. She'd been sneakily plugging into my electricity for weeks, and I'd finally decided to give her a little surprise. Nope, this isn't a movie. This is what happens when a wannabe HOA queen runs a fake neighborhood watch like it's some kind of militia in the wrong damn suburb. Freeze frame. Yep, that's me. The guy with the private well that Tina, real name Denise, secretly tapped into so she could water her petunias without paying a cent. What did I do? I flushed her entire irrigation system with raw sewage. And oh man, that was just the opening act. Now, before you get the wrong idea, like I'm some kind of mad scientist turned suburban warlord, let me back up a bit. I moved into this neighborhood looking for peace and quiet. 1-acre lots, a nice modern house, and HOA rules that, on paper, seemed pretty reasonable. I'm an electrical engineer. Keep to myself. I'm low maintenance. Definitely not the guy who starts neighborhood drama. But all it takes is one power-hungry woman in an HOA vest, armed with a badge she probably printed at home, to turn suburban life into a full-blown sitcom. That woman was Denise, although she insisted everyone call her Madam Vice President of the Neighborhood Improvement Council. From the moment I arrived, she had her eye on me, and not in a good way. On day one, she left a typed letter, yes, typed, on my front door. It said my temporary construction tools were an eyesore, and that if I didn't hide my ladders, cables, or any electrical equipment, I'd be fined. I had lived there for maybe 6 hours. My truck wasn't even fully unloaded. At first, I let it slide. Some people need control the way plants need sunlight. But I seriously underestimated just how far she'd go. She wasn't just annoying, she was tactical. Passive-aggressive with the precision of a cruise missile. One time, she flagged my mailbox for not being the right height, even though it matched 3 others on the block. Another time, she cited me for leaving trash bins in plain view, while they were literally being rolled in from the curb. But the final straw? It wasn't the mailbox. Or the bins. It was when my electric bill jumped by more than $180 in just 1 month. At first, I thought maybe I'd left something running. So I checked everything. Nada. System was solid. Then I noticed something weird on my ring cam. The outdoor outlet cover? Slightly ajar. At first, I figured it was the wind. Maybe a stray dog. But then I saw it, 11:47 p.m. A shiny white Tesla easing into my driveway. A cable trailing from my outlet to her car like it was some public charging station. And out stepped Tina, midnight ninja mode, bathrobe flapping, phone light leading the way. I had to pause the video 3 times just to be sure. And there it was, that smug little hair tucked behind the ear, as she strutted back home with the swagger of someone who'd clearly done this before. She wasn't even trying to hide it. Next night? Same routine. Night after that? Sometimes she even came during the day. One afternoon, she actually parked diagonally across my driveway, charging cable stretched tight like an umbilical cord. No apology. No heads up. Just pure, bold entitlement. So, I did what any tech-savvy, slightly petty guy would do. I started monitoring everything. Installed a smart power meter with Wi-Fi logging. Tracked it for 2 weeks. Her Tesla stole almost 70 kilowatt-hours from my outlet. That's about $174 worth of juice. When I finally confronted her, politely I might add, she blinked like I'd asked her for a kidney. "Oh, I thought that was a shared community outlet," she said. "It's in the front yard." So when I pointed out that the outlet was literally wired into my house, locked up, weather-sealed, and clearly not a public utility, Tina just flipped the script. "Well, you don't even own an EV," she snapped. "So what do you even need it for?" I just stared at her, trying to wrap my brain around how far off the rails this conversation had gone. I told her, flat out, to knock it off. I even zip-tied the outlet cover shut. 2 days later, the tie was cut. I installed a new lock. Next day, I noticed fresh scratches on the outlet box. And the new lock? It looked like someone had been messing with it. She was getting bolder. And then, get this, she filed a complaint against me with the HOA. Accused me of tampering with shared neighborhood utilities. So imagine how hard I laughed when I opened a letter from the HOA and saw I'd been fined $200 for obstructing what they called a community electrical resource. Yeah, I left. And then I stopped laughing. Then I got serious. I spent 2 full days combing through the HOA charter, page by page, like I was decoding the freaking Dead Sea Scrolls. Eventually I found it, a super vague clause buried deep in there. It said something like, any exterior feature visible from the road may fall under HOA easement interpretation. And that tiny, slippery sentence? Tina had turned it into a weapon. Because that outdoor outlet, which was installed long before I moved in and was clearly part of my property, was suddenly considered a communal access point. That was the moment it hit me. This wasn't just some annoying neighbor. This was a full-blown power-tripping dictator with a thirst for free electricity and zero respect for boundaries. That's when the real plan started to come together. Now, look, I could have just unplugged her, locked it down harder. But that would have been too easy, too quick. I wanted her to understand, to feel what it's like when you tap into someone else's life without permission. So I got to work. I pulled apart an old irrigation controller box. You know, those fake green ones people use to hide sprinkler wiring. I modified it so it looked like a plain, boring electrical setup. Totally unremarkable. Inside, a custom-built, low-voltage shock relay circuit. Completely safe, non-lethal, but powerful enough to trip the Tesla's sensors and give her 5 very unpleasant, very chaotic minutes of blinking lights, bizarre warning chimes, and a dashboard that looked like it was about to launch into orbit. It wasn't meant to cause damage. It was meant to educate, and maybe freak her out just a little. I installed it, camouflaged it perfectly, and synced it with my motion-activated camera. Then I waited. And oh man, when it finally happened, it was even better than I'd imagined. She backed in, just like always, cable in hand, completely carefree. Plugged in, walked away like she owned the place. 5 minutes later, showtime. First, the headlights blinked, twice. Then the dash lit up red. The touchscreen flickered like an old VHS tape on its last legs. Then came the sound, this glitchy, panicked ding-ding-ding from the speakers, like the car was trying to warn her of the apocalypse. Tina came running out in a panic, robe flapping, yanking the charging cord out like it was about to explode. She stormed up to my porch, furious, half crying, half screaming, accusing me of planting some kind of voodoo tech to sabotage her precious Tesla. And me? I just sipped my coffee and nodded, calm as could be. But that wasn't even the best part. See, while she was having a meltdown over her demon-possessed car, the irrigation system she'd illegally hooked up to my private well? Yeah, that was about to kick on in exactly 32 seconds. And what was flowing through that well, you ask? Raw, pressurized sewage. Right into the heart of her fancy little decorative garden planters. Oh, you thought this whole thing peaked with Tesla shock therapy? Nah, buddy. This story's just getting warmed up. Let me tell you something I've learned the hard way. When you catch someone like Tina red-handed, and she still tries to double down, it's not courage. It's delusion. She genuinely believed the entire neighborhood would rally behind her no matter what. And when the HOA is basically her own private army, you can't just fight back with facts or logic. You need strategy. You need evidence. And above all else, you need to hit her where it hurts. She really thought she was untouchable, like her image alone gave her superpowers or something. After that whole Tesla light show fiasco, Denise kicked into full-on damage control mode. But not the kind you'd expect from someone who just got busted for stealing electricity. Nope. There was no apology. No offer to cover the cost. Not even a hint of embarrassment. Instead, she doubled down on the crazy. She actually told people, dead serious, that her car had been sabotaged by radical elements in the neighborhood. Yeah. Those were her exact words. By the next morning, she was marching around the cul-de-sac with a clipboard, warning everyone that there was a techno-anarchist targeting electric vehicles in our community. Apparently, I'd gone from regular homeowner to eco-terrorist in less than 24 hours. And while she was busy spreading that nonsense, She filed another formal complaint with the HOA. This time, she accused me of endangering her property, interfering with her access to clean energy, and, my personal favorite, spiritually compromising the flow of communal goodwill. I still have no idea what that even means. Pretty sure she didn't either. And the HOA? Classic. They responded the way they always did when Denise hit the panic button, by siding with her. They sent me a strongly worded letter, threatening legal action if I ever tampered with community infrastructure again. No mention of the fact that she'd been plugging into my personal outlet like it was a public charging hub. No apology for the bogus fine they already hit me with. Just another passive-aggressive slap on the wrist, because in their eyes, Denise could do no wrong. So I did what any good engineer would do. I started collecting data. I installed a brand new smart monitoring system, top-of-the-line stuff. It gave me real-time tracking, instant notifications, even second-by-second estimates of power usage. Then I set up a motion-activated camera system that fed straight to my phone and a cloud server. And just to be extra sure, I created a little applet that pinged me every time someone accessed that outlet. And wouldn't you know it, even after the Tesla meltdown, she came back. Not right away. She waited a few days, probably to see if the coast was clear. But on night 4, just after midnight, her car quietly rolled into my driveway. Same angle. Same sneaky approach. Like a raccoon sniffing around for leftovers. She stepped out, looked around, then plugged in. Same outlet, same routine. And there I was, watching the whole thing live from my phone, sipping hot chocolate and laughing to myself. This time though, the outlet wasn't rigged. Not electrically, anyway. Because now the real trap was evidence. Over the next 10 days, she did it 9 more times. Always late at night. Always parked just off-center, like she was trying to dodge the cameras. Didn't work. I had 3 cameras now. All high-res. One of them even caught her mid-yawn. So, when the next HOA meeting rolled around, and Denise stood up with all that fake fire in her voice, pointing fingers and calling me a threat to the neighborhood, I stayed completely silent. I let her go off. Let her rant about how her Tesla had never run right since the spiritual attack. Let her wave around her printed-out Tesla diagnostics showing random voltage surges and weird dashboard errors. I just waited. And once she finally ran out of steam, I asked to speak. Then I pulled out a little remote and turned on the projector. Slide 1. Footage of Denise pulling into my driveway. Clear timestamp. Slide 2. A detailed power usage graph showing the exact spike from when she plugged in, labeled Tesla charging event. Slide 3. 9 more clips. One after the other. Boop, boop, boop. In every single one, there she was. Front and center. Face in full view. I even added some dramatic music, just for fun. Because, hey, go big or go home, right? You could literally feel the air get sucked out of the room. Denise's smile froze like she'd been hit with a taser. The HOA president's jaw dropped open just a little. And the treasurer? He nearly spit out his coffee. Barry nearly choked on his coffee. But I wasn't done yet. I handed out printed statements showing the total power she drained from my outlet, over 74 kilowatt hours. That's about the same as running a small hot tub for a full month. Right beneath that, I listed the dollar value, $187.24. Itemized. And just to really drive it home, I included a letter from my home insurance provider. It clearly stated that unauthorized use of my utilities could void my entire coverage. Denise tried to cut in, of course she did, but I just held up one finger. That was all it took. One quiet, not yet. Because then came the big finish. I revealed a diagram of the circuit I had used, the one I'd already filed a provisional patent for. I even gave it a name, the Tesla Theft Detection and Deterrent Device. Legally registered under my name. Reviewed and approved on a public electrical safety forum as a clever, safe, non-harmful deterrent to protect personal property. Denise tried to claim I'd built a weapon. But I calmly pointed out, it was no more dangerous than the little zap you get from a doorknob in winter. And she had plugged into my outlet almost a dozen times before it ever even activated. Plus, there was zero damage to her car. Even her own Tesla diagnostics report showed nothing but some temporary glitches. No lasting effects. Nothing permanent. For a few seconds, the room was dead silent. Then Barry, the older board guy who usually only showed up for the donuts, leaned over and muttered, "Well, that's just brilliant." And that was it. Denise snapped. She called me a sociopath, accused me of stalking her, and demanded I be kicked out of the neighborhood. Someone from the back of the room chimed in with, "Lady, you've been robbing his house at night. Maybe don't throw stones." The room broke into laughter. Even the HOA president looked like he was trying not to grin. In the end, the board took a vote. Denise was officially stripped of her vice president title. They issued me a formal apology for the bogus fines, and removed them from my record completely. Better yet, they agreed to update the HOA charter. From that point on, all private utility outlets would be clearly defined as homeowner property, not shared neighborhood resources. Finally, but the best part? Restitution. Denise was ordered to reimburse me for the stolen electricity. She had 30 days to pay up. If she didn't, the HOA would fine her double and put a lien on her house. You could almost see her soul leave her body when they said the word lien. She stormed out of that meeting, leopard print purse flapping behind her like a battle flag in retreat. That really should have been the end of it, right? You'd think that losing her title, being publicly humiliated, and getting slapped with a fine would make her reconsider her life choices. But nope. Denise wasn't finished. About a week later, a mysterious envelope showed up in my mailbox. No return address. Inside was a typed letter accusing me of harboring illegal technology and creating instability in neighborhood energy fields. I nearly laughed myself into a hernia. But then, my security system caught something. There she was, creeping around the side of my house in the middle of the night. Not in her car this time. She had a garden hose. And something told me she wasn't there to water any flowers. Now, there's a very specific sound a garden hose makes when it drags across gravel at 2 in the morning. It's not loud. It's just wrong. Out of place. And after everything, after catching her stealing power, after her public meltdown over her haunted Tesla, that sound hit me like a siren. I was half asleep on the couch, some late-night rerun playing in the background, when my motion sensor pinged. I pulled up the camera feed, expecting maybe a raccoon or a stray cat. Nope. It was Denise, tiptoeing across my side yard in fuzzy slippers and a windbreaker, dragging a hose like she was on some weird midnight mission. It felt like she was auditioning for a rejected Ocean's 11 spin-off, just without the charm or the brains. At first, I didn't even get mad. I just sat there blinking, confused, trying to figure out how she thought this was a good idea. What exactly was the logic that brought her here? Was she planning to water something on my property? Sabotage something? Maybe spray down the outlet in some half-baked revenge plan? Did she honestly think I'd come out, get zapped, and that'd be the end of me? She crouched down right next to my irrigation box, the same one I had previously used to send a little sewage surprise back into her stolen water line. And she started messing with it. That's when it hit me. She was trying to pull a reverse sabotage. But unlike me, Denise didn't have the slightest clue what she was doing. And she was about to find out the hard way. See, after the Tesla circus and the HOA showdown, I made upgrades. Serious ones. New lock. Hidden camera inside the irrigation box. Motion sensors buried in the soil around it. I was ready. Because you don't publicly dethrone the self-declared queen of HOA drama and expect her to go quietly. But even I didn't think she'd come back this soon, or be this hilariously bad at it. I watched her tug the hose around, trying to hook it into the system. She failed miserably. Then she started twisting a cap that wasn't even connected to anything. It was purely decorative. The actual working components were sealed inside a weatherproof box, hidden behind a fake panel. But in Denise's midnight genius mode, she was convinced she was about to breach my waterline. I watched her grunt in frustration, then stand up and start smacking the irrigation box with the side of her flashlight like it owed her money. That's when I activated the sprinkler system. You've never seen a middle-aged woman jump that high in your life. The second those hidden rotator heads kicked on, a jet of cold water blasted her square in the face. She shrieked, like legit horror movie shriek, slipped on the wet gravel, and landed flat on her back. The hose coiled around her like it had given up too. She scrambled to her feet, soaked from head to toe, hair sticking out like she just kissed a live wire, and bolted back across the lawn without even glancing behind her. And the best part? I never even had to leave the couch. It was flawless. The next morning, I found an official-looking letter in my mailbox from the HOA. They were requesting my presence at an emergency community conduct review. Translation? Denise pulled the fire alarm again. I showed up to the clubhouse in jeans and a hoodie, fully expecting another episode of suburban drama live. And boy, did I get one. Denise was already there, dressed like she was about to testify before Congress, dramatic scarf, oversized sunglasses, tissues in hand like she was auditioning for a soap opera. She claimed she'd been attacked by malicious sprinklers during a routine community inspection. She accused me of setting up a premeditated water ambush and weaponizing landscaping tools. It was like watching someone try to sue gravity for making them fall. But this time, the board wasn't quite buying it. I presented my security footage, which, by the way, showed her very clearly trespassing, messing with my irrigation system, and trying to access private property at 2 a.m. No amount of flashlights or fake inspections could spin that as HOA business. She looked like she was casing the place, plain and simple. Still, Denise didn't back down. She whipped out printed screenshots from our neighborhood Facebook group, people gossiping about her Tesla meltdown. She claimed I was running a targeted harassment campaign, that her car had developed, and I quote, electromagnetic anxiety from the ordeal. That was the phrase she used. Then she pulled out her big evidence. She slammed down a stack of papers, saying it proved I was a threat to the neighborhood. Tesla diagnostics, pseudoscientific printouts about electromagnetic fields. And, wait for it, a petition she started, titled, Remove the Hacker from Oak Valley Estates. The petition she brought? Yeah, it had a grand total of 4 signatures, hers, her dog groomers, and 2 poor folks who thought they were signing up for a composting workshop. I didn't even need to defend myself. The HOA board, still stinging from the last mess they made siding with her, was already over it. The president leaned forward and asked if I had anything to add. So I just hit play. Pulled up the security footage, the one where she gets blasted in the face by my sprinkler system. There was a moment of silence. Then someone in the back snorted. That snort turned into a chuckle. Then the chuckle spread like wildfire. Next thing you know, the whole room was trying to hold in their laughter. Even Barry, the donut guy, chimed in, grinning, now that's karma with a pressure nozzle. Denise? She was furious. Jumped up, shouted something about bias and corruption, and stormed out again. Same dramatic exit, different day. Only this time, the censure wasn't for me. Nope, the HOA finally issued it to her. They warned that any future trespassing, bogus complaints, or late-night hose missions would result in actual legal action. And just like that, it seemed like it was finally over. I'd made it. Survived the HOA witch trials, dethroned the self-appointed suburban tyrant, and turned my yard into a fully fortified zone of petty justice. But Denise? She wasn't wired like the rest of us. Instead of backing off, she switched tactics. She stopped coming at me head-on and started working in the shadows. Whisper campaigns. Fake posts on neighborhood Facebook groups. Flyers pinned at the community mailbox with vague warnings about someone using electrical manipulation to control the neighborhood's behavior. I'm not kidding. She even called the city to report my home for unpermitted installations. Joke was on her. My permits were rock solid. Still, it was annoying. Death by 1,000 paper cuts. Then one night, something new happened. There was a knock on my door. It wasn't Denise. And it wasn't the HOA. It was a man in a suit. Said he was from Tesla's Customer Integrity Department. Apparently, Denise had filed a formal complaint, claiming my outlet had permanently damaged her car. Said it gave her phantom glitches, that the soul of the vehicle had changed, and that it now played unfamiliar music on its own. She wanted compensation. Maybe a new car. Possibly damages. Tesla had to follow up. I invited the guy in, poured him a cup of coffee, and sat him down. Then I walked him through the entire saga. Every video, every power log, even the schematic of the harmless little surge relay I'd built. When I finished, he just shook his head and said, "We've seen a lot. But this is something else." He thanked me, told me Tesla wouldn't be taking any action, and left. 3 days later, guess what? Tesla flagged Denise's car for electrical inconsistency. They marked her as a high-maintenance user, someone whose vehicle reports would now go through extra scrutiny. In plain English, her profile was red flagged. If she ever called support again, they'd treat her like the neighborhood conspiracy theorist she was. She didn't know it yet, but she was about to. Because that weekend, we had our annual neighborhood block party. Everybody was there. Families, kids, even the HOA trying to pretend they were just regular folks again. And of course, Denise showed up. Pulled up in her Tesla like it was the family jewel, front and center, polished up like a showroom car. Then someone casually asked, "Hey, why does your center console flicker when you use Bluetooth?" Denise froze. She mumbled something about rogue frequencies. Another neighbor laughed and said, "Maybe it's haunted again." Then someone else, phone in hand, added, "Didn't this guy, pointing right at me, catch her stealing power?" She turned her head slowly. Saw me, leaning against my fence, sipping sweet tea with the kind of smile you wear when you've already seen the twist ending and you're just waiting for everyone else to catch up. And that's when she realized the tide had turned. It wasn't just the board anymore. It wasn't just the data or the footage. The whole neighborhood was waking up. And Denise? She was running out of shadows to hide in. There's something funny about people like her. They only know how to work in the dark. Whispers, guilt trips, power plays behind the curtain. People like Denise operate under one assumption: that nobody will ever stand up to them. They think they can lie, manipulate, cheat, and bulldoze their way through life, because everyone else is either too polite or too busy to call them out. But once that illusion breaks, once the curtain gets pulled back and people start seeing who they really are, it doesn't take long for the whole act to fall apart. And Denise's performance? It was crumbling fast. After that block party, something shifted. The same neighbors who used to smile and nod at her started looking the other way. The HOA board began quietly phasing her out of meetings. Even her prized Tesla, that smug little badge of her suburban superiority, had become a punchline. People were talking. Apparently, the console flickering hadn't gone away. The weird Bluetooth glitches were getting worse. She tried taking it to a different Tesla service center, but the flag on her account followed her. Everywhere she went, it was the same routine: polite smiles, fake reassurances. "We'll look into it." Translation: "Lady, we know exactly who you are." But Denise wasn't about to go quietly. If her reign was ending, she was going to make as much noise as humanly possible on the way out. That's when the flyers started showing up. Handwritten rants taped to mailboxes, slipped into doorways. Wild claims about electrical sabotage and neighborhood conspiracies. One said I was using electric pulses, yep, electric, to control HOA decisions. Another accused me of building a mind control tower in my garage. For the record, I don't even have a tower. I've got a Wi-Fi extender. Then she started trying to sell her house. At first, it was subtle. Just a casual post in the community Facebook group, asking if anyone knew a good realtor. Then a little "for sale by owner" sign popped up in her front yard, but it vanished after just one weekend. I figured she finally realized the neighborhood had turned on her. What I didn't expect was that the house wouldn't sell. And not because of the market. It was me. Well, not directly. I never posted anything. Never said a word to any potential buyers. But somehow, and I truly have no idea how, footage of her sneaking over to charge her Tesla at my house made its way online. A full-on compilation, too. Edited, captioned, even scored with background music. The title? Karen's Free Ride: How One Woman Stole Electricity and Blamed Demons. To this day, I still don't know who posted it. Could have been anyone. The video blew up. Local Facebook mom groups passed it around like candy. It hit Reddit, and eventually landed on some YouTube revenge channel, with over 500,000 views. By the time a real estate agent finally tried listing her house officially, the listing was already getting buried in troll comments. One guy asked if the outlet came with the property. Another wanted to know if the Tesla was pre-haunted. Zillow had to disable the comments section temporarily. Denise tried spinning the story, started telling people she was moving for a new career opportunity. Said the neighborhood had become toxic. But no one was buying it. Every open house she hosted had suspiciously low turnout. Some folks just showed up to see the now infamous yard. One guy even recognized her porch from the freeze frame in the viral video. After that, she stopped doing open houses altogether. Meanwhile, over on my side of the fence, life was looking good. My smart home project? Almost done. Solar panels? Installed and running like a dream. Best part? I'd set up a password-protected outlet system, wired directly into my smart grid. Now, if someone in the neighborhood needed to charge a device, or even plug in a car, they could. All they had to do was ask. If someone asked politely and had the password, they could use my charger. I called it Power to the Polite. People loved it. Even the HOA, believe it or not, admitted it was a forward-thinking community initiative. They actually asked me to consult on a plan to roll it out across the entire neighborhood. Denise wasn't invited to that meeting. Now, you'd probably think this would be the end of it. That Denise would finally pack it in, slink away in defeat, and everything would go back to normal. But if you've made it this far, you already know, Denise doesn't do normal. And she definitely doesn't do shame. There was still one more twist coming. Our neighborhood hosts a huge holiday decorating contest every year. Lights, music, giant inflatables, the whole production. Denise had won it the last 2 years, mostly by bullying the judges into submission and guilt-tripping anyone who dared to compete. This year, though, I decided to enter. Just for fun. I kept it sleek, minimalist white LEDs, clean lines, solar-powered, naturally. It had a modern aesthetic with a quiet little message woven in. And right in the center of my front yard, I added one final touch. A small lawn sign, gently backlit. Simple font. This house is powered by the sun. Not the neighbors. The neighborhood went nuts for it. It became the unofficial slogan of the block. Kids took selfies with it. Neighbors posted it online. Somebody even made t-shirts. I didn't win the decorating contest, but neither did Denise. She came in fourth. Behind me. Behind the guy with the inflatable Santa that did backflips. And behind a high school kid who literally wrapped his entire house in tinfoil and taped a sign to the front that said, "Budget Bling." That was it. That was the last straw. 1 week later, a moving truck pulled up in front of Denise's house. No warning. No farewell tour. She was gone before sunrise. Her Tesla? It got loaded onto a trailer. She didn't even drive it out. I stood on my porch, coffee in hand, just watching it all unfold. Not out of spite, maybe a little, but mostly with the quiet satisfaction that came from knowing she was finally out of tricks. No more lies. No more flyers. No more demon-haunted dashboards. A few weeks later, her place sold. The new owners were a retired couple from Colorado, super sweet folks. First thing the husband asked me, "So, is that outlet thing real?" I couldn't help but laugh. I told him the whole story, start to finish. He shook his head, grinning, and said, "Well, that's one way to get introduced to the neighborhood." Then he leaned in and asked, "Mind if I get the password for your charging setup?" I handed him a little card with the code. Now when I walk around the block, people wave. They ask for smart home tips. One guy even called me the HOA whisperer. Not sure if that's a compliment, but I'll take it. What started as some petty spat over stolen electricity turned into something way bigger. A shift in how this whole neighborhood works. A reminder that standing up to bullies does matter, even in the most ordinary settings. And Denise? Last I heard, she was trying to sue Tesla for emotional distress. Something about her new car switching radio stations on its own. Personally, I hope it only plays the same 3 songs on loop. Preferably something ironic. Like High Voltage by AC/DC. As for me, I'm finally getting that peace and quiet I moved here for. No more fines. No more sabotage. Just the soft hum of solar panels, the occasional ping from a motion sensor, and the sweet, sweet knowledge that if anyone does try to use my outlet without asking, let's just say, I've still got the circuit, and it's always ready to party.